What if Fulgrim was a Twitch streamer? Nah, I'm just playing. What's up, guys? Mr. CK40K here, and I just finished part one of Fulgrim. So let's talk about it. Gonna give you a little review slash rundown. I feel like we all know how this goes. We all know the story. He picks up the blade, gets possessed, yada yada yada. But honestly, I'll be honest. This starts well, to me at least. This starts super slow, dude. Like this is. I'm not gonna say it's rough because I'm slowly enjoying it more and more. But this right here is it's kind of a hefty book. It's a lot to it starts slow, but I feel like it's ramping up pace. It's not like the other three books because like I really enjoyed like Flight of the Eisenstein was awesome. Let's get into focus. Yeah, yeah. This book, like that, by far my most favorite book I've read so far. From the well, come on, I've only read like five of the Horus Heresy books, but that by far is probably my favorite. So that being said, there's a colorful list of characters here. Of course, we have Fulgrim, Eidolon, Saul Tarvitz, Lucius, Fabius. We have a lot of Primarchs: Ferrus, Manus, Horus, Vulcan, Corax, Angron, Mortarion, and Erebus. But I mean, I don't know if so. Obviously, we start off with there. Well, let's see. First of all, we have an interaction between Cinera de Angelis and Ostien Delafour. Ostien Delafour is a sculptor. These two, Ostien's really into this chick. I think she's sort of into him, but not really. And then there's this really popular composer named Becca Kinska, really interested. So I mean, let's get right into it. So we start off with basically them talking, but then they're admiring the world of Lair or Lair. I don't really know how to pronounce it properly, but you know, they're looking, and the Lair are there, and there's Solomon, who's an Emperor's Children Marine. He's fighting these aliens, these Xenos. They're going ham, boom, boom, boom. It's just it's really just a slow buildup of Fulgrim descending onto the planet and getting possessed. So there's not a lot we can really talk about here. Well, there is, but I'm sure most of you, if you're watching this, you're probably into Warhammer, so you know how it goes down. So instead, I'm probably going to tell you the small little instances I really enjoyed in the first part of Fulgrim. So we're gonna start from the we're gonna start backwards. So we're gonna start at the end of part one. So when they're in the Valerian temple, Fulgrim and all of his sons are there. There's this weird moment where every single one of them, including his elite guard, Fulgrim's elite guard that is, feel really, really uncomfortable, and they can feel that something's dangerously wrong because the Laren aren't fighting; they're making a path for Fulgrim, and they're writhing. And let me look at his name real quick so I can get you guys the most accurate words names guy. We have what's his name? Solomon Demeter. And he's explaining to us, describing to the reader how he can feel this tingling sensation of ecstasy and delirium, all telltale signs of Slanesh. And this is kind of the beginning of the excess. And it's just a really interesting thing because there's a certain sentence in there that says, he hears a hideous laughter that nobody else seems to hear. So what does this mean really? So if we're thinking about it, this can mean two things. One, it's a chaos induced like hallucination type thing. Two, I'd like to believe it's Slanesh, him, herself, whatever, themselves, subtly like letting their influence be known. Because a trend with these books include, whether it be Fulgrim, The Flight of the Eisenstein, or the first three books of, Horus Rising, False Gods, Galaxy in Flames, characters feel chaos because chaos isn't really letting itself be known yet. Like, there are instances where it's either Nathaniel Garro or Garviel Loken. They feel something in their gut that's horribly, horribly wrong. And I'd like to believe that this gut feeling is the chaos god themselves and not chaos as like a as a concept. You get me? And well, that was one of my favorite. There's another part that I really like, and it's I don't know what chapter, but I know the page. I think it was page 68. Let's look. No, okay. So I think it was page like 86. But basically, it's Solomon, this emperor's children again, who I mentioned previously. He sees Fulgrim introduce two warriors into the fold: Lucius, who's later Lucius the Eternal, and Saul Tarvitz. So Solomon is a lot like Lucius. He sees himself as not a perfect warrior, but the warrior who strives for perfection via, improving his, martial arts and, his ability to kill. So when he sees Lucius, he says, that right there, that's a warrior. Reminds me of me. He's destined for greatness. And then he sees Saul Tarvitz, and he says something that really made me annoyed, but in hindsight, kind of made me laugh too. Here's Saul Tarvitz. He will never be anything more than a line warrior. There's nothing impressive about him. Saul notices this, looks at him, gives him a nod, they give each other a nod. All's fine in the world, but the irony of saying Saul Tarvitz will amount to nothing made me laugh, because Saul Tarvitz is by far probably one of my most favorite characters so far. He is boring, but there's nothing wrong with that. In a legion full of those who try to strive to be perfect, the man who understands that perfection isn't something that can be attained is truly a man worth admiring, in my eyes, anyway. So that being said, those are two really, really fun interactions, and it's just in this book too. This is more of a not like I like Graham McNeil and I like most of his stories, but the amount of times perfection is mentioned, you could do a drinking game with this and say, every time you see the word perfection, take a shot. You'll be dead by chapter 2. I'm sorry. That's just a little thing that's been pissing me off, but yeah, this book, a lot like the other heresy books, the small details make for the big details. So seeing, oh, ooh, I just reminded myself. Okay, so another interesting moment in this was seeing Fabius interact with Fulgrim, because at this point, Fabius is dissecting two Laeran soldiers, and he comes to this conclusion. He says, I need to talk to the Primarch. Fulgrim comes and talks with him, and he says this: what did you want to see, Apothecary? And he basically says, I need you to look at this, Fulgrim. There are two Laeran specimens here. They've each been genetically engineered for their specific purpose. They see genetic modification as a way and a step towards perfection. And Fulgrim says like this. He's like, Fabius, are you implying that these Xenos are indeed perfect? That's borderline heretical, and I should kill you where you stand. He says, no, no. And then he says, but look at how they've been engineered. It's fascinating, and I believe I could do something like that. And Fulgrim immediately says, you dare think you can improve upon the Emperor's work? I should kill you where you stand. Doesn't happen. I'm going to try to find it right now, but essentially... Okay, yes, yep. It's fascinating, my lord. Quite fascinating, said Fabius, standing between the two layer corpses. I have performed genetic analysis of both these specimens, and have found much that may be of interest. So basically, let me skip ahead. You believe the layer to be perfect, Fabius. Ask Fulgrim, a note of warning. Be careful what you say. To compare these Xenos creatures to the work of the Emperor would be unwise. No, no, said Fabius hurriedly. What the Emperor made for us is incredible, but what if it was only the first step? And then he mentions he wants to improve upon it, and this angers Fulgrim. I could have you killed. But then Fulgrim says this: you believe you can enhance the gene seed of the Astartes. I do not know for certain, said Fabius, struggling to contain his elation, but I believe we have to at least try. It may be that it will prove to be fruitless, but if it's not, we would move closer to perfection, said Fulgrim. And only by imperfection can we fail the Emperor, said Fabius. This interaction was by far the most telling, because Fulgrim hasn't fallen to Slanesh yet, but you can see his arrogance in this. You can see he. Let me put it to you like this: Fulgrim is like a Twitch streamer that gets high off his own supply. You know what I mean? This dude puts up a facade. You know how they say most Twitch streamers play character or a more exaggerated versions of themselves. Fulgrim does this. It's pretty advisable. He does it when he's talking to his sons at the Warrior Lodge. He puts on a facade. He's very brave. He's very charismatic, and then he pretends to be angry to get his point across to let the other person who's speaking out against him know this was always how. He's a very smart individual, but it's a not a facade, but it's an exaggeration. He's worried he can't live up to the image he portrays to others, and in this interaction, we see the beginning of the end. This arrogance that he can improve on what the Emperor suggests, or what has the established foundation that is the Space Marines. And seeing this happen is just so amazing to me, because if you've read the Fabius Bile books, he learns nothing. He still tries to do this. He's still with the new men, with Melisandre, not Melisandre, his he basically makes like this creation's basically like his pseudo daughter. I'm sure I'll remember it at some point. But it's just to see Fulgrim already sort of do whatever it takes to be perfect and lose sight of the fact that perfection is only a concept and not something you can actually attain is just fun to me, because it's like I like watching the like the rise and fall videos, and this is what it is. This is the rise and fall of Fulgrim. And once he touches that blade, he smiles and he says, "Kill everything in here." And it's just brutal. It's brutal in a good way. So it's again. So final thoughts. This is a slow book, but it's a good book. I'm not hard to please. I've liked all these books so far, but this was the slowest one, I'll say right now, for me to get into. And I'm not a fan of the big parts. I'm also just a fan of the smaller parts because they make the bigger parts more satisfying, Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. One final thing I want to leave you guys off with. So remember how I talked about the sculptor and the singer? So Becca, whatever her name, let's look again. So we have Becca Kinska and Ostian Delafour. So there's this interaction between the two where Becca basically has a monologue inside her head that says, how dare he deny me? All I have left now is the corruption of the young, because it's enjoyable to watch the young fawn over me, be interested in me, because the book makes note of that Becca could have any man or woman she ever desired, and for her to be denied is something new to her, and it provides a new sensation, a new challenge, which is exactly what Slanesh wants. People usually confuse the two, that Slanesh is somehow this deity that represents depravity and is like more sexually oriented. That's not really the case. The sexuality is an aspect of Slanesh, but not the whole picture. Slanesh is excess as a whole. So Becca's is about her own vanity and about her wanting to corrupt and control and consume the sculptor. And we're seeing on a mortal level, not on an Astartes level yet, on a mortal level, how corruption starts as a thought and the thought soon becomes the action. So that was really fun to see, because we're already seeing glimpses of people misconstruing what perfection is. So it's really funny too, because he's basically like, I'm not into you, and he politely just tries to say, I'm really into sad women. Like, okay, I'm sorry I keep looking, but there's a lot of names in here that I often forget. So Serena's like she's an artist, and she's trying to paint Fulgrim, and he's really into her, the sculptor, and his name is Ostian. So again, Ostian is not into Becca, he's into Serena. And he just kind of like makes it known that he's not into Becca by saying like, oh, yes, well, unfortunately I'm into sad women. So sorry, but I'm into women who are just not you. And she gets so tight, and she like pins him against the wall with her fingers. It's like her fingernail. She's like, "Listen here, Bucko," and it's a really funny interaction. But in hindsight, it's also highlighting the beginning of the end as well for everyone on Fulgrim's ship. So it's really just really funny in a way, and it's also a really good example of how chaos replaces your thoughts with its own intentions. So really good, really just it was just really fun. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. But other than that, guys, that was Fulgrim in all its part one glory. I can't wait for part two because we already have the perspective of the Iron Hands coming in, so that's getting really lit. But yeah, other than that, if you guys like what you like, highly recommend you stay around because we got more Fulgrim coming in soon. So if you like what you like, highly recommend you subscribe. Other than that, guys, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching.